Every spring, we break our backs smashing hard clay to plant potatoes, believing it is the only way. But the wild roots around ancient rustic cabins hold a forgotten wisdom, planting once and harvesting forever. And the real reason your back gives out every spring has nothing to do with your age. It is a single, violent mistake we were all taught to make every single morning. I used to think that growing food meant declaring a war on the earth. I remember the mornings I would stand exactly where I am standing now, gripping a heavy, rusted spade. I would drive it deep into the soil, turning over the dark clumps, sweating under the pale spring sun. My lower back would scream in protest, and my knees would ache for days after. I thought that exhaustion was simply the price we had to pay for a good harvest. I thought I was being a good gardener. But in reality, I was just a weary soldier, tearing apart a delicate, invisible city beneath my feet. If your shoulders always feel heavy and your spine aches after a morning of weeding and tilling, I want you to know that it is not just the voice of your age catching up with you. It is the earth crying out, telling you that there is a gentler way. You see, when we strip away the need to buy expensive ergonomic tools or loud, gasoline-powered tillers, we are left with something far more profound. We are left with time. The 3 hours I used to spend wrestling with the clay, I now spend sitting on that wooden porch right there, holding a warm cup of herbal tea, just watching the garden breathe. Beneath this undisturbed layer of straw and decaying leaves, a miracle is happening. When we leave the soil alone, it builds microscopic capillaries, tiny, quiet rivers that capture the rain and hold the moisture deep within. The earthworms, those silent, tireless workers, are creating perfect tunnels, aerating the ground far better than any metal blade ever could. They do not ask for our help, they only ask for our peace. We have been taught that we must start over every single year, buying new potato seeds, tearing up the ground, and leaving it bare and vulnerable to the scorching sun. But the wild, ancient plants know better. They remember a time before the plow. They know how to sleep through the freezing winter under a cozy blanket of mulch, only to wake up exactly when the soil is warm enough. They ask for nothing but to be left undisturbed. As we walk along these beds today, I will show you how to let go of the burden of control. We will explore how stepping back, putting away the shovel, and trusting the wild roots can heal not just the fractured soil, but also our tired bodies. Imagine never having to bend over in pain again to pull up your dinner. Imagine parting the soft, dark mulch with your bare hands, easily lifting out perfectly clean, vibrant roots and leaving the rest to sleep until the next season. It is not a myth. It is the forgotten wisdom of the earth. So, let us take a slow stroll down this path. Let the quiet morning wash over you, and let us listen to what the soil has been trying to tell us all along. Here we are, at the heart of the autumn garden. Look down at this garden bed. To the untrained, hurried eye, it might look a little wild, perhaps even messy. There is no perfectly raked bare soil. There are no neat lines of black plastic suffocating the earth to keep the weeds away. There is just a thick, peaceful blanket of fallen leaves, old cold straw and the quiet decay of autumn. But underneath this soft blanket, something beautiful is resting. Right here are my sunchokes, and just a few steps over, the vibrant oca from South America. Unlike annual potatoes that demand we tear up the earth and start from scratch every single spring, these perennial tubers hold an ancient, quiet wisdom. They know how to fall into a deep, restorative winter sleep. When the bitter frost bites the air, they do not panic. They simply tuck themselves deeper into the warm, decaying mulch, waiting patiently for the gentle thaw of spring to wake them up again. Planting them for the very first time was a quiet revelation for me. I remember standing in the gardening aisle of a large supply store years ago, looking at heavy, expensive tillers and rolls of weed-blocking fabric that cost a small fortune. I just smiled, shook my head, and walked away. Because out here, nature provides everything we need for free. To plant these tubers, I do not swing a heavy pickaxe. I do not force a shovel into the hard clay. I simply use my bare hands to part this soft layer of autumn leaves. I nestle the small tuber right onto the surface of the dark, rich compost, and then I gently pull the blanket of straw back over it. That is it. There is no strain. My shoulders remain completely relaxed, and my spine is never forced to bend and ache. When we leave these tubers in peace, a magical partnership forms beneath the surface. From what I have observed over the years, if you gently brush away the topsoil, you will find tiny, fragile white threads wrapping around these roots. This is the mycorrhizal network, the internet under the soil. It is an underground web that connects the plants, allowing them to share water and silently warn each other of pests. According to soil researchers, this fungal network secretes a natural biological glue called glomalin. It is this beautiful glue that binds the soil particles together into soft, spongy crumbs, making the earth light and air. If I were to start a gas-powered tiller and drag it through this bed to plant my crops, I would instantly shatter that entire communication network. It would be like cutting the power lines and tearing down the bridges of a thriving, invisible city. There is a deep, abiding comfort in this way of growing food. Every time I walk past the old wooden shed, I see my rusty spade hanging on the wall. It gathers dust now, a quiet monument to a harder, more painful past. Leaving the soil undisturbed does not just save us money on synthetic fertilizers or save us from the physical agony of aching joints. It saves our spirit. The oca, with its beautiful clover-like leaves, drops its foliage right where it stands. Creating its own delicate mulch, it returns exactly what it borrowed from the earth. By not tilling, we honor this natural cycle. We step back, we breathe, and we let the garden heal itself. We do not have to force life to happen. We only need to create a warm, safe space for it, and then simply let it sleep. Let us walk over to this older bed, where the groundnuts have been quietly establishing themselves. Notice how thick the mulch is here. It is like a heavy, comforting quilt woven from decaying straw and fallen leaves. Sometimes, during the dry, scorching days of midsummer, I watch folks down the road struggling with heavy, high-pressure hoses, desperately trying to revive their cracked, parched garden beds. The sun beats down on their bare soil, evaporating the water almost as soon as it touches the ground. Their water bills rise, and their frustration grows. I do not worry about any of that anymore. By simply laying down this natural blanket and refusing to turn the earth, the soil beneath transforms into a vast living sponge. When I do need to water, I just use this old metal watering can. I pour it slowly. The water does not run off or wash away the precious topsoil. It simply sinks in, absorbed instantly by the dark, porous earth beneath the straw. The mulch acts as a natural shield, keeping the soil cool in the peak of summer heat and insulating the delicate perennial roots from the bitter freezing winds of winter. There is a hidden architecture down there. The soil naturally organizes itself into perfect layers. The microorganisms that love the air live near the surface, while those that thrive in the dark, quiet depths stay below. When someone takes a shovel and flips the soil over, they are essentially throwing the surface dwellers down into a suffocating darkness and pulling the deep dwellers up to be scorched by the sun. By leaving the soil perfectly intact, we protect this delicate balance, and nature rewards us for this gentleness in the most beautiful way. Have you ever stepped outside right after a gentle summer rain and taken a deep breath? That rich, intoxicating scent of wet, living earth. Science calls it geosmin. It is a compound released by the healthy bacteria in undisturbed soil. Studies from researchers at the University of Sussex and Kyoto University have shown that simply inhaling this aroma can lower our human heart rate and soothe our nervous system. Every time I kneel by this bed, not to work, but just to breathe, the garden is literally healing my mind. But what about the weeds? That is a question I hear often. In a traditional garden, you might spend a grueling Saturday morning on your hands and knees, pulling out every stray green shoot by the root. It is exhausting work that leaves your fingers blistered and your lower back completely stiff. But in a no-dig perennial garden, we approach things differently. When the soil is not constantly turned over, millions of dormant weed seeds remain buried deep in the dark, unable to sprout. For the few bold ones that do manage to push through the mulch, I never pull them by the root. Pulling them would disrupt the delicate fungal network we have worked so hard to protect. Instead, I just take a small pair of shears and simply snip the weed right at the base. The roots are left in the ground to decay, silently turning into organic food for the very soil they tried to invade. It is completely effortless. There is no struggle, no pain, just a quiet, mindful snip, and the balance is immediately restored. The time of harvest is often seen as the hardest labor of the gardener's year. I remember the old days, when autumn meant dedicating an entire grueling weekend to digging up the potato beds. It was a race against the changing weather, a frantic effort to pull every single tuber out of the cold, hardening clay before the deep freeze set in. I would stand out here in heavy boots, driving a sharp digging fork deep into the earth, straining my back with every heavy clump of soil I lifted. By the end of the day, my knees would be throbbing, and my lower spine would ache so deeply that just standing up straight felt like an impossible task. I would literally have to roll out of bed the next morning, not sit up. I honestly believed that was simply how an aging body said goodbye to the garden. We were told this was the only way to bring food to the table. But the garden does not want us to suffer. It never did. When you transition to a no-dig system with perennial tubers, the harvest is no longer a physical battle. It becomes a gentle, quiet uncovering. Look at this bed of groundnuts and sunchokes. There are no thick, muddy clods of clay to break apart. There is no need for a heavy steel fork or an expensive ergonomic shovel to save your joints. The earth here is so soft, so airy, that it feels almost like coffee grounds. Watch closely. I am just going to kneel here for a moment. My knees, which used to swell and ache after just a few minutes on the hard dirt, now rest easily on this thick cushion of autumn leaves. I do not need gloves. I simply reach down and part the dark, spongy mulch with my bare hands. Like pulling back a heavy blanket from a sleeping child, I gently sweep the soft earth aside. And there they are, beautiful, vibrant tubers sitting right near the surface. They are not encased in rock-hard mud. They are clean, fresh, and effortlessly easy to pick up. My spine remains perfectly straight and untroubled. My shoulders carry no tension at all. I am just gathering the gifts that the earth has carefully held for me. There is a profound sense of relief in this moment. But perhaps the most beautiful part of this relationship is what we choose to leave behind. In industrial agriculture, the goal is total extraction. The machines come through, ripping up the soil, taking every last potato, and leaving a barren, lifeless field in their wake. But here, in our quiet garden, we practice the art of letting go. As I gather these larger sunchokes for tonight's dinner, I am deliberately leaving the smaller ones nestled down in the soil. I cover them back up with the warm mulch and pat it down softly. This is not a waste. It is a promise. It is the seed for next year's abundance. I do not have to drive to the store in the spring to buy expensive seed potatoes. Nature has already planted them for me. And because these perennial roots are perfectly safe sleeping under their blanket of mulch, I do not have to harvest them all at once. Nature has provided a living, breathing refrigerator right here in the ground. When the crisp winter air rolls in, and I want a warm, hearty soup, I will simply walk out here in the quiet evening, brush aside the snow and the leaves, and gather exactly what I need for that one meal. The rest will continue to sleep, safe and undisturbed, waiting for the spring. As the sun begins to dip lower, casting long golden shadows across the garden beds, there is a profound stillness that settles over everything. Look at my hands as I hold these freshly gathered tubers. They are not covered in thick, sticky mud. My fingernails are not packed with hard clay. They are just dusted with a light, airy soil that easily brushes away. This gentle harvest is only possible because of the silent, unseen workers that we have chosen to protect. When we put away the sharp metal tools and refuse to turn the earth, we are making a promise to the tiny lives that share this space with us. Beneath this warm mulch, The earthworms are slowly and safely making their way through the dark. They are the true, silent tillers of this garden. They do not ask for payment, and they never take a day off. Every time someone drives a spade blindly into the ground, they risk injuring these gentle creatures. By leaving the soil undisturbed, we honor their quiet labor. And it is not just the worms. It is the intricate, fragile web of white mycelium that weaves through the soil, passing nutrients from the decaying leaves down to the roots of our sunchokes and oca. It takes months, sometimes years, for nature to build this delicate underground architecture. We must treat it with the reverence it deserves. This is why I never use harsh synthetic fertilizers. Pouring chemical nitrogen onto this living soil would be like tossing a match into a dry forest. It burns the delicate roots, disrupts the fungal network, and chases away the very life that keeps the garden healthy. This piece extends above the ground too. Over there, near the edge of the bed, my dog is fast asleep, entirely unbothered. There are no loud roaring engines from a gas tiller to frighten her. There are no toxic granules scattered on the surface that I have to worry about her stepping on. The garden is simply a safe, quiet haven for all of us. Gardening in this way, stepping back, observing, and letting go of our need to control everything, is the truest form of patience. It teaches us that we do not have to fight for our sustenance. We just have to listen. But to make this soft, airy soil truly immortal, to ensure that it never compacts and always retains its breath, I do not rely on buying bags of commercial potting soil. The truth is, I use a technique passed down from ancient, wild lands. I revive the earth using something dark, silent, and incredibly powerful, black biochar. But how this simple, burnt wood transforms a struggling garden into an eternal ecosystem, well, that is a story we will explore together on our next walk. As the evening chill gently rolls in, I want to ask you something. How long has the heavy spade in your shed been resting? Or perhaps, what is the one heavy burden in your garden you wish you could finally let go of? Please, tell me your story in the comments below. I am always here, reading and listening to you. Thank you for walking with me today. May your garden always be a place of healing, and may your hands always be gentle. Until next time.